and dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
Welcome to Anti-Tyranny News Radio here on UCY.tv. Thank you for joining me this evening. Going to get into some news related to the youth. Going to get into a few topics about that. I do want to get into a Ron Paul Liberty report to kind of kick off the thing, and we'll get into the foreign stuff. And something that I've been talking about and paying a lot of attention to is between Russia and China. And now the Pentagon has come out and said that Russia and China are our biggest threat. And I'm not looking at it as a military thing. It's more of a manipulation and dealing with the petrodollar. But a lot of times things like this end up leading to military action because of the fighting back and forth and the manipulation and the internal type of covert things that go on that we won't know about until long into the future. That's usually typical of how these things work, and we've done it in Iran. So it's reported that Soros invested millions in the Ukrainian uprising. So when we start looking at these things, we do see this, propping up of aggression towards each other to manipulate the economic situation and the world power situation. When you have these people that are trying to create this type of world government, you will have different sects of that will interfight. And it's kind of like with the Republicans and Democrats. The leads of, the GOP and the Democrat side, they have the same wants when it comes to, they want power, they want to be able to control, they want to be able to protect their power structure that they are creating, and they feel that they're above the rest of the people. They just have different ways of going about it, and that's why many people, that you ask, and why we are seeing the increase of independence, where independents in a lot of states will very shortly outnumber Republicans and Democrats combined, because you don't see a choice, because you're looking at a choice of, well, I want a choice of, more control or less control. And all they're giving you a choice of is get kicked with the left boot or the right boot. And, well, for most logical thinkers, I don't want either boot kicking me. And I'm not going to lick the foot of either boot. So, it's one of those, are you a bootlicker or not? Well, they're asking, well, which one of the boots do you want? No choice. But let me get into this Ron Paul Liberty Report right here. It's forget ISIS, Russia and China biggest threat, says Pentagon.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. Daniel, good to see you today.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Good. The news has changed a little bit. We've heard a lot about ISIS. It's still in the news, but they're not the greatest threat in the world. It used to be last week, for last year or two, perpetual war for perpetual peace and spend more money and start a new engagement here and there. But this week, the greatest threat to our national security are those Russians. I guess they're going to march in. And my greatest threat, I wonder if it's greater than it was during the Cold War. But anyway, Joseph Dunsford, who's up for chairman of U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, was testifying before the Armed Services Committee, which is John McCain's committee, and he was chairman. And this is where he made the announcement that greatest threat to our security are the Russians and the Russian government. And for some reason, all of a sudden, it wasn't a big deal to be talking about ISIS. But I guess it depends on their mood and what they're doing. And guess what? John McCain sort of liked what he heard because, and he also, McCain obviously got into points. Oh, sure, things are, we have to do this, but we have to send more weapons, to Ukraine in order to counteract this great threat. And yet, I think most of this is concocted. But did this just come out of the clear blue, or is there a strategy change in the administration?
Well, it's interesting that we see a coordinated effort, I think, because we saw the Dunford testimony before the committee this week, but we also saw a couple of weeks ago the release of the National Military Strategy of the United States. And that is also a shift because it focuses away from non-state actors as the greatest threat to the U.S., which, as you point out, we were told was the case, and it refocuses on state actors that are, quote, challenging international norms. And what that means in real terms is that any nation that pursues an independent foreign policy, and it specifically mentions Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, these are the greatest threats. The threat is the existence of sovereign states whose independence of action makes them, quote, revisionist states. That's what Paul Craig Roberts wrote about the new strategy that we have up on the Institute's.
I think they're good at orchestrating the PR when they are shifting gears like this, because this week the U.S. Air Force Secretary, Deborah James, was interviewed, and guess which words she used? Russia is the greatest threat to our national security. All of a sudden, this is it. They're ready to go. So they're sticking to the message. But some days I wonder whether we'll ever be interested in the greatest threat to our liberties, and that might not come soon, because then we have to hit home, closer to home, because that should be really our main concern about the threat to our liberties. But right now, though, this is being orchestrated, obviously, for 4 reasons that they don't tell us. But James, the Secretary of the Air Force, I think she sort of leaked out the real thing. She came down critical of our NATO allies, our buddies in NATO. They've done our bidding, in pestering Ukraine and trying to stir up trouble, participating, in the coup and the overthrow of the elected government of Ukraine. But she is upset. And she's upset now because of the 28 NATO countries. Only 4 of them are spending enough money buying weapons. Now, I imagine they're buying them from us, But they're supposed to, under the rules of NATO, spend 2% of their GDP on buying weapons. They say it's military and they say it's defense, but it's buying weapons is what it's all about. who do you think is going to benefit from all these expenditures if she's able to get them to spend more money?
Well, certainly the military-industrial complex, both in Washington, Berlin, and Paris.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, this 2% was an aspiration that came out of the NATO summit last year, I think it was. But the fact of the matter is, even these 4 countries who are spending their 2% are relatively insignificant countries. One of them is Lithuania, which I think has about 15,000 men and women in arms. And the others, as I wrote about it in a recent article for the Institute, the real big players in Europe are actually decreasing their defense spending. You know, Germany's at 1.2 or 1.3%. The UK has decreased its defense military spending. So these, on one hand, Russia is the greatest threat, and obviously would be to Europe because it's next door. But these countries, their response to this great threat is to decrease their military budgets.
Of course, Greece continues to spend in their bankruptcy. But I think that's the important point that you make, that if this was a real threat, you know, that the tanks are going to roll in and take over Eastern Europe, there would be a little bit of concern. NATO would be begging and pleading for us to spend more money and do all these things, and they'd be willing to. No, they're not that much interested. So the reality of Russia being a real threat. Matter of fact, I think their tone, Putin's tone, is not always that soft tone because he doesn't want to be pushed around. But I think the tone has softened a little bit, and he even took the step of cutting off the gas to Ukraine because they're not paying their bills, which actually undermined. He didn't get some gas into Western Ukraine, and I don't. He just doesn't sound like somebody that is going to roll with the troops and the tanks all over Ukraine. I think that's the odds of that happening is just so remote, and yet they still have to build up this animosity.
And I think the odds are there because there are ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine who don't like the way they're being treated, and they're being treated very badly. They're being shelled on a regular basis. So if the same were the case and there were a bunch of Americans in Mexico who were being shelled by the Mexican government, there would be certainly some concern in Washington.
And sometimes this warmongering comes from economic problems, the crises, the revolutions. That's when the countries go broke, and they have to try to resort to how are we going to take care of our country because of their huge debt. And I think this is something that they won't admit to. The problem that debt is the major problem throughout that region. And they are resorting to other things. Now, our policies toward Russia is actually creating an economic climate which may be the threat to the United States. Because, if they push too hard, you see Putin, although he doesn't have a really strong deck, he's not bashful. He will talk to the Greeks, and say, hey, look, we want to be your friend. He even talks to the Saudis. And theoretically say, yeah, what if the Russians and the Saudis get together? And we've already pushed them into the arms of the Chinese, and the Indians are going to be sympathetic to that group, not to us. And if our currency breaks down, and this currency system, if the entire dollar system breaks down like the euro breaks down, maybe somebody's going to fill this vacuum. And it may be that the biggest concern is the economics, because usually wars are fought over natural resources and over how you handle debt, who's going to pay the bills. So I think economics are very important here, but I think we have created a monster and a lot of harm, for the people of Eastern Europe and in Ukraine and all these areas. And of course, the mess in the Middle East is of our doing to the most part. And then we say, well, they're talking now about a lot of oil coming out of Iran. I hope that is the case where they have a settlement there. But even that isn't going to solve all the problems. There's still going to be a lot of economic factors going on. And I think we may be in worse shape economically than people admit, and we're resorting to these directions toward the military. This old theory that, war will distract the people from the real issue of the war and from the Depression.
Yeah, and if you read between the lines of this new military strategy, although it does mention China as a threat, it seems to soft pedal the threat a little. And I think, in the sort of the criminology of analyzing this report, you could suspect that the U.S. is concerned about China and Russia getting together. And you mentioned Saudi Arabia. We talked about it before the show, that we don't see a change in alliance happening overnight. But the Saudis aren't stupid people. They're probably hedging their bets.
Yeah, and I think we're less close to the Saudis than we were before, but we're very much engaged. We're partners in an illegal, unconstitutional, immoral war of bombing and killing. Just the other day, there were quite a few more, and I think there were some of the planes killed the wrong people. You know,
in Yemen,
and we're part of that. So we have a moral responsibility. I'm sure we're financially liable for a lot of this as well. So we're locked in there, but not permanently. Things can change rather rapidly. But I don't think Saudi Arabia is as they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. And, that's our alliance, our close alliance with Saudi has been going on ever since Roosevelt, the end of World War II. And there's nothing that says that something like that is going to be permanent. So we'll have to wait and see. They're not, other than oil, would we have ever been a natural ally of Saudi Arabia?
Let's hope not.
And even now, what we overlook in order to try to play these games of going after our enemies, last week's enemy, ISIS and Al Qaeda, we align ourselves and get involved in these wars. And when you look at and then we condemn some countries for their human rights behavior, and our best friends are the Saudis.
Yeah. So, it almost becomes comical when you look at the Dunford testimony, because it gets to the point where everything he says about Russia is really more true about the U.S. He says that the problem with Russia is it doesn't respect other nations' sovereignty. But look at how the U.S. bombed Libya. It's bombing Syria. It violates sovereignty on a regular basis. He says that Russia's military actions are undermining regional security. But what about moving NATO troops right onto Russia's border? Doesn't that undermine the stability?
I guess my message didn't get through. This meager suggestion about a foreign policy with a golden rule. Don't do to other countries what we don't want to have done to us. But you're absolutely right. If we do it, it's okay. If they do it to us, or even not do it to us, they get accused of doing it, which is not very healthy for the world.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and I want everybody to pay close attention to what's going on with Russia right now, because it has been declared the outright enemy of our national security above everything else. And this week, don't worry about ISIS and don't worry about Al Qaeda. That may come later. But like I said at the beginning, the real concern that we all should have is the concern for our liberty. And who is the greatest threat to our liberty? What happens to be here at home? It happens to be not only us who become apathetic and don't say much and put up with the spying on us, and apathetic on what our government tells us and lies to us and spies on us constantly. So our liberties are being undermined. And right now we have been taught for the last 15 or 20 years that the only reason people dislike us is because we are rich and because we seek peace. And that just is not true. And they are resentful to us because we're in their face and in their country and meddling in their internal affairs. So I would say let us be concerned about our liberties and about our security, but the best security we can have is to mind our own business and take care of ourselves and provide a free and prosperous society so we can set an example for the rest of the world. That should be our goal. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report, and please come back soon.
Okay, again, Ron Paul Liberty Report on YouTube. You can find it there. Subscribe, check it out. Now, like I've been saying, I really think a lot of this comes down to currency, trying to manipulate that. We know that Soros reportedly has got millions invested in that whole uprising, and how manipulating control of oil is pretty key. And right now, the fracking industry is producing, I want to say we're selling right now somewhere around $50 a barrel. I want to say it's somewhere around there, and we have to be producing, some say 80, other ones say around 70. Um, so in between 70 and 80 to be productive enough for fracking, which I know there's environmentalists out there that would like to see the fracking stop. Um, I would just like a hell of a lot more evidence about what it's really doing. Um, I think evidence is manipulated on both sides because you do have a lot of these environmental groups that are out there pushing the anti-fracking that are, again, financed by some very, very sketchy people for purposes other than trying to, keep things safe and secure for you and your families. They have very, very other alternative motives behind what they're doing. So, both sides, the evidence gets corrupted. And to really understand the truth about what's really going on and, why are we doing it the way we're doing it if it is contaminating. There has to be better ways. Maybe it isn't as productive. Maybe we should get cheap oil from other countries, and if they decide that they don't want to sell to us for cheap when we can produce it at a rate that's profitable for us, we can start doing it. But I think it's really a manipulation on many levels. You have the petrodollar that China and Russia would like to see go. You have the oil control and the markets when it comes to that. And then you have creating, in a way, a world government, which Russia and China think, they should be the head of. America, along with Canada and Mexico, they always just kind of tag along. Part of the partnership between, the NAFTA stuff. You look at the gripping control, over swaths of Earth. It's just another struggle, and none of it has our interests, at heart. And kind of talking about that, here was one I seen. It was kind of surprising out of the Huffington Post under politics. Is the TPP okay with slavery? Question mark. Really? Question mark. So the fast-track plan to pass the Trans-Pacific Partnership has run into a new wrinkle after an amendment passed in the Senate debate. Slavery, yes, really, slavery. The Senate voted for an amendment that would make it more difficult for countries that engage in slavery to be in the TPP, and the Obama administration objected. This is bizarre stuff, folks, but welcome to the world of international trade deals. From Ryan Grimm's article, the day Fast Track was passed about the amendment in question, the measure would bar governments considered to be complicit in human trafficking from receiving the economic benefits of a fast-track trade deal. Mendez, the author of the provision, has described it as a human rights protection that will prevent U.S. workers from competing with modern-day slave labor. The administration has pushed against the provision, saying it would prevent Malaysia from participating in the deal and eliminate incentives for the country to upgrade its human trafficking enforcement. Human rights advocates strongly support the language that passed the Senate on Friday. The president argues that if the U.S. doesn't cut deals with these partner countries, China will, to U.S. Disadvantage. The State Department's human trafficking analysis of Malaysia describes the country as a destination and to a lesser extent a source and transit country for men, women, and children subjected to forced labor and women and children subjected to sex trafficking. The department cities forced labor problems in Malaysia's palm oil industry, and nonprofit groups have noticed similar abuses in the Malaysian electronics industry. The State Department report says Malaysian public officials may profit from trafficking. The president does not want an anti-slavery provision in what he calls the most progressive trade deal of all time because it would keep a country noted for its egregious slave trade out of the treaty. I have to admit, this bothers me just a little. Okay, massive amount. We're not going to object to slavery because a country that openly engages in it might trade more with China than with us. Doesn't this kind of blow up the whole most progressive trade agreement in history thing? And you can read the rest of this article. I'm going to kind of cut it off right there at HuffingtonPost.com. And the title of it is the TPP okay with slavery? Question mark, really? Question mark. And, you know, if you think this president is objective to slavery, well, dumb people can be slaves. And the way that government has been conducting itself, definitely under Obama and previous presidents, show that they kind of look at the everyday person as slave labor. Unless you make it to our level, you're just, a peasant. But if government was really for the people, that wouldn't be the case. They run it like a business. There's a command of chain, and these people are above you in their minds. But unlike a company where you are voluntarily, exchanging labor for wages, government claims authority over you without your consent. And that's why they have to tax, which taxation is basically theft, that artificial authority over you to be able to take your money. And if you decide, just like in a mafia or a mob, if you don't pay for our protection of you, your family, and your business, we'll come with the guns instead of someone else. And you know what? There's been mafias that weren't strong-handed in that way. There were groups out there that they were just respected by the community, and people asked for their help. I guess people ask for government's help too, so only if it benefits you. I have one here from, this was Business Insider. You can find it finance.yahoo.com. One of the largest human experiments in history was conducted on unsuspecting residents of San Francisco. San Francisco fog is famous, especially in the summer when weather conditions combine to create the characteristic cooling blanket that sits over the Bay Area. But one fact many may not know about San Francisco's fog is that in 1950, the U.S. military conducted a test to see whether it could be used to help spread a biological weapon in a simulated germ warfare attack. This was just the start of many such tests around the country that would go on in secret for years. The test was a success, as Rebecca Creston explains over at Discover magazine, and one of the largest human experiments in history. But as she writes, it was also one of the largest offenses of the Nuremberg Code since its inception. The code stipulates that voluntary informed consent is required for research participants and that experiments that might lead to death or disabling injury are unacceptable. The unexpecting residents of San Francisco certainly could not consent to the military's germ warfare test, and there's good evidence that it could have caused the death of at least one resident in the city, Edward Nevin, and hospitalized 10 others. This is a crazy story, one that seems like it must be a conspiracy theory, and internet search will reveal plenty of misinformation and unbelievable conjecture about these experiments. But the core of this incredible tale is documented and true. A successful biological warfare attack. It all began in late September 1950 when, over a few days, a Navy vessel used giant hoses to spray a fog of two kinds of bacteria, Serratia marcescens and Bacillus globigi, both believed at the time to be harmless, out into the fog, where they disappeared and spread over the city. It was noted that a successful biological warfare attack on this area can be launched from the sea, and that effective dosages can be produced over relatively large areas, concluded a later declassified military report cited by the Wall Street Journal. Successful indeed, according to Leonard Cole, the director of the Terror Medicine and Security Program at Rutgers New Jersey Medical School. His book, Clouds of Secrecy, documents the military's secret bioweapon tests over populated areas. Cole wrote, nearly all San Francisco received 500 particle minutes per liter. In other words, nearly every one of the 800,000 people in San Francisco exposed to the cloud at normal breathing rate, 10 liters per minute, inhaled 5,000 or more particles per minute during the several hours that they remained airborne. This was among the first but far from the last of these sorts of tests. Over the next 20 years, the military would conduct 239 germ warfare tests over populated areas, according to news reports from the 1970s after the secret tests had been revealed. In the New York Times, the Washington Post, Associated Press, and other publications via LexisNexis, and also detailed in congressional testimony from the 1970s. These tests included the large-scale release of bacteria in the New York City subway system, on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and in National Airport just outside Washington, D.C. In 1994, congressional testimony, Cole said that none of these had been revealed to the public until a 1976 newspaper story revealed the story of a few of the first experiments, though at least a Senate subcommittee had heard testimony about experiments in New York City in 1975, according to a 1995 Newsday report. A mysterious death. When Edward Nevin III, the grandson of Edward Nevin, who died in 1950, read about one of those early tests in San Francisco. He connected the story to his grandfather's death from a mysterious bacterial infection. He began to try to convince the government to reveal more data about these experiments. In 1977, they released a report detailing more of that activity. In 1950, the first Edward Nevin had been recovering from a prostate surgery when he suddenly fell ill with a severe urinary tract infection containing Serratia marcescens, the theoretical harmless bacterium that's known for turning bread red in color. The bacteria had reportedly never been found in the hospital before and was rare in the Bay Area and in California in general. The bacteria spread to Nevin's heart, and he died a few weeks later. Another 10 patients showed up in the hospital over the next few months, all with pneumonia symptoms and the odd presence of Serratia marcescens. They all recovered. Nevin's grandson tried to sue the government for wrongful death, but the court held that the government was immune to a lawsuit for negligence and that they were justified in conducting tests without subjects' knowledge, according to the Wall Street Journal. The Army stated that infections must have occurred inside the hospital, and the U.S. attorney argued that they had to conduct tests in a populated area to see how a biological agent would affect that area. In 2005, the FDA stated that Serratia marcescens bacteria can cause serious life-threatening illness in patients with compromised immune systems. The bacteria has shown up in a few other Bay Area health crises since the 1950s, according to San Fran Chronicle, leading to some speculations that the original strain could have established a new microbial population in the area. While Nevin lost his lawsuit, he said afterwards, as quoted by Cole, "At least we are all aware of what can happen even in this country. I just hope the story won't be forgotten." And again, I got that from finance.yahoo.com. And it is titled, "One of the largest human experiments in history was conducted on unsuspecting residents of San Francisco." So there's your government looking out for you. Give them more power. Okay. Sorry. Trying to bring something up here. I have an issue here. Okay. Here we go. This one was put out by Christopher Green, AMTV. Conspiracy theory: the government knows best.
Check out our sponsor, the Safe and Vault store, right now. That's the Safe and Vault store. Click the link below right now. Check out all their safes. Check out their AMSEC safes, their rifle, gun, burglar safes. Check out their Liberty biometric safe, which they sent me. It's awesome. Protect your guns. Click that link below right now. Visit our sponsor. Enter promo code Second Amendment for 10% discount on all their burglar, fire, and gun safes, as well as free shipping. That's the Safe and Vault store.
Howdy, everybody. My name is Christopher Green, and you're tuning in to AMTV, Alternative Media Television, the Conspiracy Network, according to the mainstream media. It is 9/11. Yeah, it's Arizona time, 9/11.
Thursday, July 9th, just turned 9/11. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. It's weird, too. I got a bill prior to the New York Stock Exchange shutdown from the breakfast spot I stopped by that said 666 on it. I'm actually not kidding you. It was like the weirdest day yesterday. New York Stock Exchange shuts down. United Airlines shuts down. Wall Street Journal shuts down. Zero Hedge shuts down. I think maybe something else shut down. I just maybe didn't know about it. So many things shut down yesterday. And what do we learn? According to the mainstream media, if you are to think that there's a logical explanation for the shutdown, like maybe it was a terrorist attack from within the United States government itself, maybe it was a test, maybe it was an outside group, terrorist organization, you know, the same groups that they're propagandizing to us on a daily basis, like ISIS, the new boogeyman, the new creation of Al-Qaeda, now that Osama bin Laden allegedly is dead, even though he was allegedly killed before. But then he was killed again, and then his dead carcass was kicked off some kind of U.S. warship without any DNA evidence or even snapping a selfie to prove that it was Osama bin Laden. Are calling us conspiracy theorists, even though Anonymous put out a tweet strangely the night before that said something like, I hope it's not a bad day for Wall Street tomorrow. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Some of you saw this tweet, which is interesting because I think that there are legitimate elements to Anonymous, obviously, but there's also CIA involvement in Anonymous, in my opinion. I'm actually not sure if I've spoken of this before. I probably did several years ago when I used to do my radio show. You know, it's not that there's not legitimate elements of Anonymous, but it's also infiltrated by Central Intelligence. And again, that's not a conspiracy theory. Central Intelligence is penetrating many different areas. They obviously penetrate the media. For example, a lot of you probably don't know that Mr. Anderson Pooper, head of CNN, used to work for the CIA. He's also a Vanderbilt. Now, some of you that are informed probably know this. Probably a great majority of our audience, actually. I think I've spoken about it before. But a lot of people don't know that. They just call it a conspiracy theory. Do you know the CIA actually invented the term conspiracy theory to discredit really what was the truth? Which is just amazing to me. I mean, we're expected to believe that the entire New York Stock Exchange yesterday shut down. United Airlines shut down. Wall Street Journal shut down. There's a confluence of geopolitical events at the moment, by the way, with Greece, bank closures, bank holidays, Iran nuke negotiations, of which there is another deadline, a deadline in Greece, a collapse of our market system yesterday. And we're just expected to believe that it was a technical glitch, a problem with a router, according to UAL, United Airlines. They didn't give us a specific reason. It's just some kind of glitch, you know, like an accident. The same glitch and same technical difficulties they'll explain to us when we're driving, as they're pushing right now, Google technology, these self-driving cars will just drive you off a cliff. You'll just drive straight off a cliff, and they'll call it a technical anomaly, a technical glitch, a problem with their router, as, you know, 15 cars drive off cliffs or something. I mean, we are so vulnerable to this technology, so vulnerable to this system, so vulnerable to this algorithm, so vulnerable to this tech monopoly. I mean, there is such a tech monopoly right now, and this plays right into YouTube, what you're tuning into right now. I mean, people made fun of this years ago. There's a gamer YouTuber that made over $7 million last year playing video games. I mean, that's how huge this tech algorithm is. That's how huge social media is. I remember when people called me crazy for standing in front of a camera 5 years ago and broadcasting on this channel, Growing AM TV, of which, by the way, we just hit over 50 million views on YouTube and 250,000 daily subscribers. Thank you so much for your continued support. Thank you for growing this channel, sharing the word, favoriting and liking our videos, and getting out there, because we are making a pretty profound impact in the media, coming from the underground, what was once the alternative media, but really is just now the media. So we're expected to believe it was just a technical glitch, just a router problem. You know, we're called conspiracy theorists if you're going to tie two and two together. Or if you look at things like Jade Helm, for example, which starts, I believe, July 15th and runs through September, and they're moving through the western United States with these drills. If you somehow question that official government narrative and are concerned about that, as is the governor of Texas, you're actively monitoring it, you're called a conspiracy theorist by the liberalized, mainstream, bought and paid for, corporate-owned and government statist media. You're called a conspiracy theorist. I mean, I'm surprised that the masses also don't buy into the fact and call it a conspiracy theory that the CIA exists, for that matter. I mean, I would suggest that maybe the great majority of people in America don't even think the CIA is real. I mean, look, we have vast intelligence capabilities here in the United States, whether or not it's the National Spying Agency, the NSA, wiretapping our cell phones, as was the case, and shown to be improved through the leaks that we've seen in recent years from Edward Snowden, the likes of Julian Assange, et cetera, or it is the CIA or any other of these intelligence agencies, tech agencies like Google, Facebook, that work hand in hand with the government today. I mean, what did we learn yesterday? Honestly, what was the life lesson yesterday? Well, it should be that we're totally and utterly vulnerable to this system, that we have absolutely no control, and the government will be the last entity to save you. And I'm sorry to tell you, but the government won't be there to help you when the grid goes down. When that EMP blasts over, let's say in the exosphere or whatever sphere it is they call up there, and it drops our grid down at a moment's notice and they can't turn it back on, local glitch that might last, or anomaly that might last a year or so, yeah, it'll wipe out like 2/3 of the population around the globe. They'll just call it a technical anomaly. Your government won't be there to save you. Now, Obama, his cronies, his cohorts, whoever's in power at the time, probably be somebody different. They'll be in their bunkers. They'll be secure. They'll be dining on steak dinners, filet mignon, drinking a little cognac, probably watching a movie, kicking back in an underground bunker somewhere, which they actually do have, even though people call that a conspiracy theory. Again, everything is a conspiracy if it doesn't play into the, this narrative that is built for us, this illusion that is built for us from an early age. Get us into public schooling to build the illusion around this. Teach us about, how the world works. Banking, a total freaking illusion. The Federal Reserve, a total illusion. Everything an illusion. Again, program and penetrate the minds of the young. Penetrate the minds of young girls. Penetrate the minds of young boys. Fill that brain up with bullshit. Fill that brain up with crack. On another note, I'm actually waiting for the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates. I thought they were going to raise interest rates. I mean, weren't they going to raise freaking interest rates? How long has it been? I mean, the Dow Jones, S&P 500, our stock market has freaking tripled. When are they going to raise interest rates? I mean, I thought we were going to get an interest rate hike at some point in the future, but I guess not. And you know what's funny? They probably will raise interest rates, maybe a measly quarter bips, 0.25 bips, and they're probably going to have some kind of gala party or something. They'll invite Ben Bernanke, Janet Horriella, and the rest of the cronies and crew from Wall Street, et cetera. John Corzine of MF Global, the guy that ripped off billions and billions of dollars from client accounts and now is rewarded for it and starts new hedge funds, even though he should be in jail. They'll probably throw a party, even though rates, even if they bump them 25 or even 50 basis points, will still essentially be at zero. So where's the hike? They're using now China as an excuse, Greece as an excuse. We're waiting on Iran. That has a deadline. Everything has a freaking deadline. But there's no solution. There's no real outcome. There's no change to this game that we're all playing, this illusory world that we live. And that's all it is. Illusory. Money, illusory. The financial system, an illusion. The Federal Reserve, an illusion. It's why they can continue to roll these debts over into infinity to service our interest payments that we can never pay back. The same thing that Greece is dealing with, but they can't print their own currency. We do here in the United States, and somehow that makes Americans feel all cozy inside. Television shows on MTV now promoting white guilt, educating the white masses, which actually aren't the masses anymore. There's more Latinos and Hispanics in California, for example, than there are white people, and they're still playing that card. We're watching shows like The Kardashians, now with Caitlyn Jenner. He no longer called Bruce. He's now Caitlyn. I'm not sure if he cut his dick off. I guess he still likes women, he says. So he's like a transgender man, woman, he, she, female, male figure. I think still has his dick and now is going to still screw chicks, according to Brody Jenner and the rest of the crew. I mean, this is the society that we now live. And again, you're a conspiracy theorist or you're a racist if you question the official bullshit narrative. If you question the fact that your brain is being penetrated by the federal government at a very early age, until the government has one big fat orgasm in that amygdala gland in your brain, and it just kind of pops, which is kind of where we are today, living in this illusory world this world of chains, this world of bondage, where we have a giant wealth gap larger than anything we've ever seen in history, and the people still living in the illusion somehow think they're free. Even though they're the peasants of the modern day, they're the peasants of the modern age, and amongst us live oligarchs, people like the Clintons and the Bushes running for president once again. I mean, the third freaking Bush, the second freaking Clinton, who, by the way, has been engrossed in scandal and conspiracy after conspiracy, whether or not it's Benghazi or frying her emails, or her husband screwing Monica Lewinsky and God knows how many other women, and then lying on the stand, which is a criminal felony, by the way. It's a serious, serious offense. But these people get away with it. And again, the American people just must love getting screwed. They must love being penetrated in that amygdala gland in the brain. They love getting banged. They love getting banged in that brain, those Americans. Yeah, that's right. It's the conspiracy theorists. They just love it. You know, so it's like really we're standing on the edge of a freaking cliff right now, on an edge of a cliff of Greece, of the Federal Reserve, of interest rates just about to fall over, bawing our way all the way down. The millions and the millions and millions and millions and millions of American sheep that think anything, thinking outside the box or just questioning the reality for a minute, the fact that the entire New York Stock Exchange can shut down like that, the entire grid can shut down like that, an EMP could shut down our entire electrical grid like that, computer system could shut down like that, the banking system, like in Greece, could shut down like that. That's all conspiracy theory to the penetrated minds. They might as well just be hitting themselves in the face. I mean, they'd probably be smarter. Most Americans would probably be smarter if they just took a sledgehammer to their head every day before they woke up in the morning or when they woke up in the morning. That's the world we live today. An illusion, a smoke and mirrors campaign by these individuals, a media game. And that's all it is. It's a freaking game. You want to know how the billionaires make billions and millions of dollars? They trade synthetic derivatives. There's a guy named Jeff Green, no relation, by the way. He made billions betting against the housing market, trading derivatives, a synthetic instrument. These other billionaires betting on the collapse of 08, 09 or on the other way up, they all trade derivatives. Goldman Sachs trades derivatives. It's synthetic. It's created based on an illusion coming from their mind. It comes from nowhere. It's just a figment of their imagination. It's the same way they create currency. It's why it's all digital. It's why it's moving digital. It's why everything's an algorithm. It's why YouTubers, some make $7 million plus a year. It's all illusory. You create whatever reality you want in this world. It really, truly is the Matrix. You just need to break through it. You just need to wake up. You need to understand how it works. Everything a freaking illusion. You know, the minute you understand that, you know, it's kind of like, hey, you want the red pill or you want the blue pill? Or the minute you understand that, you can control your own destiny. You can control your own reality. You can take the power away from these criminals at the tippy top, the 0.001% that continue to, again, penetrate our brains from an early age that we need them when we don't. It's actually a representative republic. It's a republic of, by, and for the people with constitutional principles and values, something that they want to destroy. A politically incorrect society, as the nation was originally founded, somehow changing and transforming into this politically correct society. Again, it's all bullshit, folks, and it ain't good for you. It's all a freaking an illusion. And it's not a conspiracy theory, it's the truth. Wake up. Light that match. Light that candle. Turn on the switch. Open your eyes to reality. Take the pill. It's your choice. Got the red pill here, or I got the blue pill. Which one do you want? I'm Christopher Green. Get this video out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.
Christopher Green, AMTV, on YouTube. Now, talking about infiltrating the youth of the nation, I have one here from the Daily Californian. It's dailycal.org. Under news, campus. NSA funds U.S. or UC Berkeley cybersecurity summer camp for high school students. National Security Security Agency staff will visit a camp developed to teach high school students about cybersecurity. Hosted for the first time this year by UC Berkeley. This week to evaluate the program and decide whether to continue its funding. The camp, called CY Bear, is part of a system of 43 camps funded by the NSA and the National Science Foundation to fill the very large shortage of about 1 million cybersecurity workers needed in both government and industry, according to Stephen LaFontaine, Dean of the NSA's College of Cyber, a cybersecurity training organization. The program, called Gen Cyber, began with 6 camps in 2014 and has since expanded to 18 states and 29 universities. I think it's great to see these kinds of camps going after kids in high school, said David Wagner, a professor of computer science at UC Berkeley. Now, government funded? No, I don't believe that that's healthy. Because the government will say, well, they're allowed to hack, and you should always have a back door for them, which gives a back door to anybody else. I think it will propagandize the learning of the youth, and it's just another example of how they will use every opportunity to indoctrinate. And so you might have kids that, well, if they just grew up on maybe morals that you teach them and learning, just, the whole basis of cybersecurity and, hacking and all that, maybe they can make their own decision what's just, justified. And when they see government abridging that, they will be willing to call it out. But a lot of them will be indoctrinated that all the other hackers are evil, and unless you work for a company or the government, well, then you shouldn't be hacking. When a lot of times it's those hackers that, in ways, hold people accountable. But you can read the rest of that at dailycal.org, the Daily Californian. National Security Agency funds UC Berkeley cybersecurity summer camp for high school students. And the public schools are already, basically a indoctrination camp. It's really sit down, shut up, obey. Doesn't matter if you're learning anything. They don't really, even the well-intended people, a lot of times they know that a lot of times they're teaching is bull crap. They realize when all the students are disconnected from what's going on. It's something where it's copy words out of a book on a piece of paper in the blanks, and it just, they don't take it seriously. They're not really learning. They're just obeying. Here's your task. Here's how you do your task. Just complete this task and bring it in. And you pass. And then you wonder why a lot of kids have problems in school. And what's their solution? Give them pills. That's their solution to the issue. And then these kids actually do become a problem because now they're on psychotropics and things like that cause them to lash out, get depressed. And that never seems to be addressed, except, you know, alternative media and things like that. Now, you know, you want to see how educated we are? Well, at least out where Mark Dice is. He's already done this once with a 10-ounce silver bar and tried to sell it for $10. And then was willing to trade people half drinking Starbucks for a 10-ounce silver bar, and they declined. Well, he did another one, and here's just an example how we've been dumbed down as a populace. And it doesn't apply to everyone, but a large swath of people that usually, a lot of times it was, you know, the halfway good kids in school, you know, they did their homework, they got good grades, and this is what we get because we don't have true education a lot of times in a lot of our public school systems. And that's why a lot of the wealthy do either homeschooling or private schooling, specialized tutoring or boarding school and things like that. It really comes down to you don't stick them in a public school if you got money. But here it goes. People choose free candy bar over 10-ounce silver bar. Worth $150 in experiment.
It's your lucky day today. You win a free 10-ounce silver bar, pure silver bullion, or a free Hershey's king-size chocolate bar.
Take this one.
You'll take the chocolate bar. Who needs a 10-ounce bar of silver? No. Have a good day. Bye. It's your choice. A free 10-ounce bar of silver bullion or a free king-size Hershey bar.
I think I'll take the Hershey bar.
Go ahead. It's your lucky day. Just fresh out of the refrigerator.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who needs a 10-ounce bar of silver when you can have a good, delicious bar of chocolate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You'd rather have the Hershey bar than the silver bar?
Yes, I would.
Oh, you would? Okay.
Yeah, the Hershey bar, you just can't eat the silver bar.
Yeah, that's right. You can't eat the silver. What are you going to do with a 10-ounce bar of silver, right? You know. Which one do you want?
Probably the chocolate, because I'm a girl and it's been a cranky day.
Okay, it's yours. Eat it quick because it's getting hot out here.
Fine.
Just offering people a free Hershey bar today or a free silver bar. Which one would you prefer?
Silver. I'll take the...
Who needs a silver bar? Lucky day today. A free chilled Hershey bar straight out of the fridge or this bar of silver. It's 10 ounces.
What are you guys doing?
Which one do you want?
Well, I don't have any way to do anything with the silver.
Okay, so you'd prefer the Hershey bar?
Yeah, but is it real?
Yes. Just straight out of the fridge.
Doesn't seem real.
The Hershey bar doesn't seem real. I mean, we could go into this coin shop. We could verify the silver bar is real.
No, that's all right.
It's real.
I'll always take chocolate.
Always take chocolate. Enjoy. You're a winner today. We're offering a free Hershey bar right out of the fridge.
Okay.
Or a free silver bar. It's 10 ounces. It's a little tarnished. Which one do you want?
I don't know. Chocolate bar.
Go ahead.
Right.
It's yours. You're a winner.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day. You're a winner. You win either a free 10-ounce bar of tarnished old silver bullion or this Hershey bar just out of the fridge.
What is it? What's gonna happen?
Which one do you want?
The candy.
Go ahead. It's yours. All right, we got another winner. The Hershey bar giveaway. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're new. Check out some of the previous videos and playlists on youtube.com/MarkDice. Hit me up on Facebook and Twitter. or check out some of my books in paperback on Amazon.com or your favorite e-reading device.
Mark Dice on YouTube. Check them out. Again, to let you know, they're literally doing this right outside a coin store. Even offers one of them in the last video. He offered almost everybody, you know, we can go right in here and verify that it's real silver. Right outside a coin store, $150 worth of silver, and they took the Hershey's bar. They could have walked right in there with that 10 ounces and walked out with some money. Enough to buy plenty of Hershey's. Now, if you look at dollars, if he would have had $150 in a 10-ounce bar of silver and asked someone, which would you stick in a safe to store for retirement? People would be like, well, probably the cash. I guarantee you that would be the response of most of those people. But cash will be devalued. 10 cents can't buy what it could 40 years ago. But let's think, and I went back to this, Ron Paul's went back to this multiple times, and I, go back to what he said on it. When a dime was made out of silver, you could buy a gallon of gas for a dime. Today, that same amount of silver would buy you a gallon of gas. But that dime, today's dime, would not. So what would hold value? Well, as the dollar devalues, silver will remain the same. It will hold the same amount of value. So if you have that silver dime today, more than likely in 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, that amount of silver will be worth, a gallon of gas. And that also will show kind of how things will become more valuable in the future because we do use resources. So, kind of like an old car. It's not that you need an old car all the time. Sometimes it is useful to have an old car, but it becomes more rare. And if you think, well, maybe in the future, if we have some other type of technology, we don't need silver like we do today, and we're doing it with other things, well, then you also have to look, will it be mined as much? The silver out there might be, the last of it might be in what's left of electronics that have gold and silver. And it's one of those things where history really has proven that these type of elements like gold and silver tend to always be worth something. You look at almost any empire, any dynasty, any civilization, metal tends to become valuable in some form or fashion. Now, is there going to be slumps? Oh, yeah. Just like anything, there's going to be slumps when it's not needed or wanted. It might go down. But I tell you what, when we have economic times like we do right now, a lot of people are looking at hoarding gold and silver, looking at futures. And I think that's why China's able to do what it's doing. It's been hoarding gold for so long and just buying it up and buying it up. When they have a problem, they can say freeze everything here, let's inject a crap load of money and we don't even go in debt. See, if we want to inject money into things, what happens? We go farther in debt. Places like China and even Russia has been hoarding the hell out of gold. When they inject into their economy, they're not injecting debt into their economy. Only savings. So, it gets to a point where that's going to play a factor. And then places like Greece, like Christopher Green talked about, Greece doesn't have the ability to print their own currency. That's one of the key things about the euro. That gives these puppet masters even more control over countries and their economy and their citizenry and their ability to defend themselves, because they gave all their sovereignty away. And you know what? Unless the TPP is completely revealed in every text and it's 100% perfect and it secures our sovereignty, which we already know it won't, then it doesn't protect us. People are like, sovereignty, we don't mind open borders, we're libertarian. Well, yeah, I don't mind the free exchange, but that's not what this is. It really becomes contradictory to that free exchange, where you now have a body that you can't vote on, you can't elect, you can't have any say-so. You don't even have the illusion of having authority or the ability to control that type of body. So they don't even give you the illusion. They just say that we are the final say. And we're going to, I believe, have some really big problems come out of this. Now, let me see if I can find this one article I posted. I thought I posted. Hoping I posted it. Might not though. Yes, I did. Okay, then I'll just move along here. Okay. I had a few here from truththemedia.com, formerly benswan.com. Sorry, everything's acting a little slow also. Okay. Now, when I was talking about the illusion of having a effect, We've talked about the whole election process and the whole voting process, how it's really just a rigged system. Well, this one out of Truth and Media, rigged Fox News debate criteria lacks transparency. And we've seen this in the past, where Fox News is really, when Ron Paul first was trying to run, well, second time he ran for president back in '08 elections, they really basically kept him out of debates. Well, here, this was excuse me, July 7th, 2015. Limiting factors for Fox News 2016 GOP presidential candidate debate remain unclear since the network announced that with such a large Republican field of 2016 presidential candidates, not every GOP candidate will be allowed to participate in the August 6th debate. The primetime televised debate to be held in Cleveland, Ohio will include only the top 10 candidates in national polls. The candidates who do not make that cut will be allowed to take part in a non-televised forum earlier in the day. New Hampshire Republican activists, who are the first in the nation to vote in 2016 primary, have already expressed their frustration with the fact that Fox will not allow all candidates to participate in the televised debate. The controversy continues to grow with the latest announcement from Fox News. In order for candidates to qualify for the primetime stage, Fox News is selecting the top 10 candidates from only 5 national polls. The polls must be conducted by major nationally recognized organizations that use standard methodological techniques, Fox News official said in a statement. So what's the problem? Not only are more than 5 national polls, but many polls use variations of questions and subjects during polling that skew outcomes. For instance, the Washington Examiner pointed out that out of the 5 latest polls, 2 of them would put former Hewlett-Packard CEO Carly Fiorina, a long shot for the GOP nomination, into the top 10 and access to the debate. A Fox News poll released in June 24th had Fiorina polling at 30%, which was 9th place among the 16 declared or likely Republican presidential candidates. That poll surveyed likely Republican voters. Likewise, an NBC Wall Street Journal poll from June 21st, which surveyed Republican primary voters but not necessarily likely voters, had her at 2% or 10th place among the candidates. Both the Fox and NBC polls favor her. Campaign would likely benefit from the free exposure and legitimacy a nationally televised primetime debate provides. But in other polls, she does not have the advantage. A Washington Post ABC News poll released June 3rd showed her at 12th place, thus disqualifying her from the debate stage. And it goes on, but it basically points out the fact that they can pick and choose what polls based on who they want to be in the polls or in the debates. I want to kind of move on here, though. I had another one here out of truthandmedia.com. Maine governor signs constitutional carry bill legalizing concealed carry without permit. Play a short clip first.
The state of Maine will allow gun owners to carry concealed weapons without a permit. a practice called constitutional carry by Second Amendment advocates under a bill signed into law on Wednesday by Republican Governor Paul LePage. The measure will make Maine the fifth state to pass a law legalizing the carrying of a handgun, either openly or concealed, without the requirement of a government permit. Maine joins Alaska, Arizona, Wyoming, and Kansas in voting to allow the practice, according to the National Rifle Association. Vermont has never required a permit. Arkansas and Montana also allow more limited forms of constitutional carry. The Maine law will take effect 90 days after the state's legislature adjourns, which is expected in mid-July.
So you have it where we have states that are recognizing the need for more people to feel free to exercise their right to defend themselves, realizing that, well, gun laws aren't protecting people. All these mass shootings and violent crimes happen by someone that did not have good intentions with the gun, disobeying the law, one, by going into a place that outlawed guns, public school places and even private property where they tell you no guns, you're breaking the law, and killing people. And that's, well, already against the law. If they already have the mindset that they want to kill people and that they're going to do it, do you think a gun law is going to stop them? We even seen where there was that case out in China where the man stabbed a whole bunch of, school full of kids. What, these people don't care what law you pass. They're doing something that we know to be wrong, no matter if there's a law or not. To just go mass killing innocent people. You don't even need a law that says that's wrong. But even with the law, do they care? No. They're not going to go, oh, I'm not supposed to kill innocent people and use a gun to kill innocent. They don't care. But by making these laws, they put your life in jeopardy. Well, there's police. All you have to do is call them while you're being shot at. Or shot. Don't worry, they'll come after you're dead and kill that person and write the report. But, it's something that I hope to see more states. I really hope there's someone organizing, if not, try to get organizing here in Indiana to get constitutional carry passed. They had a while back, years ago, brought back a lifetime gun permit where you could just purchase it once and, have it for life. But I would like to see constitutional carry passed here. But you can read the article too. I'll read part of it. On Wednesday, Maine Governor Paul LePage signed legislation document 652 into law, a bill that removes the requirement that lawful gun owners age 21 and up first obtain a permit before carrying a concealed firearm. The bill also allows veterans and active duty military members to carry concealed without a permit starting at age 18. The bill authorizes a person who is not prohibited from possessing a firearm to carry a concealed handgun without a permit. The bill also authorizes a person to possess a loaded pistol or revolver while in a motor vehicle or a trailer or other vehicle being hauled by a motor vehicle, reads the bill legislative summary. Bearing Arms notes that Maine, which is already an open carry state, now joins 5 other states in allowing constitutional carry. A phrase describing a legal environment in which citizens retain their Second Amendment right to carry a concealed firearm without being required to apply for a permit. Arizona, Alaska, Arkansas, Kansas, and Vermont are the other 5 states that allow the practice. Wyoming allows a lesser form of constitutional carry that only applies to state residents. WCSH-TV notes that law enforcement agencies were split in their opinions on the bill, as Maine State Police offered their support for LD 652's passage, whereas the Maine Chief of Police Association spoke out against it. Which Chiefs of Police Association are related to city cops, which makes a lot of sense. Because, well, city cops, they work in the environment of a lot less freedom allowed. That's the best way I can describe it. More tyranny, it tends to be in the cities where they restrict you from doing things and make everything a crime. Therefore, chiefs of police are wired to think that way. The main chapter of the anti-gun group Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America issued a statement condemning the passage of the bill and claiming that it makes it legal for certain violent criminals and people who have never handled a gun to carry hidden loaded handguns in public. However, the new law does not allow the possession of firearms by individuals such as violent felons who have had their Second Amendment rights stripped through due process. According to Reuters, the new law will take effect 90 days after the adjournment of the state legislature, which is expected to happen in mid-July. It's encouraging to see a governor stand up for the rights of their constituents instead of caving to the demands of anti-gun billionaire Michael Bloomberg from New York City. On behalf of the NRA's 5 million members, we would like to thank Governor LePage, Senator Eric Brakely, and the House and Senate leadership for their work in pushing this legislation through, said Chris Cox, Executive Director of the NRA Institute for Legislative Action. WMTW TV notes that groups funded by former New York City Mayor Bloomberg ran ads opposing the passage of LD 652. Maine's concealed carry permit process, which requires a licensing fee, gun safety tests, criminal background check, and assessment of the citizen's moral character, will remain in place for those traveling residents who want to take advantage of Maine's concealed carry permit reciprocity agreements with other states. Basically, Maine has agreements with other states for concealed carry. Therefore, if they keep that in place, you can go ahead and apply for that permit and allow you to carry in surrounding states and other states. Utah's the same way, and there's other states like that. And basically, a lot of the ones that you do see that have the agreements between states, they do require gun safety tests. That allows them to, use it in more states. I know a lot of states don't like Indiana's because we're not required to have a gun safety test. But a lot of the people that carry in Indiana, that lawfully carry, we grew up around guns. Boy Scouts, come on, a lot of kids at young ages were in Boy Scouts and, you know, shotguns, 22s, and just a lot of people would go out to the country and shoot guns. It's just something that a lot of people grew up around. And, you know, Indianapolis being the biggest city, but really large areas of Indiana are rural and small towns, and guns are just kind of a norm. So gun safety doesn't tend to be a big thing pushed, even though there's people that, if you haven't grown up around guns, just take a gun safety course. A lot of times, you know, I was taught gun safety not by taking a course or anything, just by people that grew up around guns. Knew, you know, check, make sure it's cleared, you know, safeties and eye protection, even though a lot of people still don't wear it, but, you know, it's something that you should think about. And you shoot enough different types of guns, you know, a lot of them might throw powder back at you a little bit, and, you know, I've shot muzzle loaders, automatics. We don't tend to see as much as like the night fire, large engagements that you might see down in Kentucky, but you know, we shoot quite a bit of guns in Indiana, and most people are pretty safe with them. You always are going to have your occasional accident, and you're going to have your criminals that their intent, it has nothing to do with safety, and they don't care about any law that you pass. And Chicago should know that. And, you know, a lot of Indians piss off the northwest part of Indiana because, well, Chicago's right on the border, and it kind of just bleeds into that part of Indiana. Everybody thinks they're a gangster. A lot of them are, but they don't last too long. Okay. Give me a second here. Man, I kind of wanted to play this clip, but I don't know. And right at the edge of the time, I did have another clip though I could play. Okay, I'm going to play this one because I don't have enough time to play the other one. Maybe I'll do that next week. But this is from Mises Media, Tate Begley, Crime and Punishment in a Libertarian Society. And I've touched on this, but this was really a good breakdown of it. And it's something that needs to be talked about a lot more. But I'm going to go ahead and play this clip.
This weekend, we continue our series of talking to some of the Mises Institute Summer Fellows. And our guest is Tate Begley, who has combined a background in criminal justice with his interest in Austrian economics. So our topic this week is private police and private law, how criminal justice and crime and punishment might look in a more libertarian society. Tate and I discuss how the incentives for private police as opposed to government police are vastly different. Private police want to de-escalate conflicts and come to the most peaceable resolution without incurring any civil liability or harm to property owners' reputation or property itself. Tate and I also discuss the insurance model that would likely flourish in a private society versus the growth model that occurs today when state police departments clamor for bigger budgets when crime goes up. By contrast, both insurance companies and the people paying insurance premiums have a direct financial interest in preventing crime rather than arresting and incarcerating criminals at length. Would a private legal system using private competing defense agencies actually produce a society with far less violence at far lower cost? If you're interested in the topic of private police and private law, stay tuned for a fascinating interview with Tate Fegley. Welcome to Mises Weekends. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for coming to Auburn and spending your summer with us as a summer fellow. How is that experience going for you, and have you enjoyed having colleagues from so many different countries?
Oh, absolutely. It's been a really great experience for me. The Mises Institute really has a special place for me. That a few years ago when I attended Mises U, it was almost like a week-long Christmas, just being able to interact with all these people who like to read about Austrian economics and libertarianism and those kinds of things. And being able to extend that to a whole summer has been a really great experience for me. And my colleagues here are really impressive. I often feel like really outclassed. They just have so many different experiences being from all over. And, we hang out all the time. We play soccer a lot, go get food to eat all the time. So really great experience.
So your background is in criminal justice, and this is really a thorny area. It's oftentimes a sticking point for otherwise, from my perspective, sensible libertarians. In other words, a lot of libertarians and minarchists believe that the one thing that the state needs to provide and that it has to exist to provide is some sort of criminal and civil justice system, and especially the enforcement mechanism of that, which we usually think of as police. So let's just talk about this conceptually for a moment. Why is it so hard for some or many libertarians to agree that police and justice systems can be provided in a private libertarian society?
Well, I think part of the problem that people have in envisioning this is they don't see how competing police can really interact with each other peacefully. Like if you read Ayn Rand, for example, what happens when two competing police agencies have a dispute? Are they just to go to war? But when you realize that how policing is done, in a typical statist system like the U.S., that it's operated like a monopoly, and so it behaves like a monopoly, that their costs of using violence are actually much smaller than they would be with a competing police force who has to bear the costs of going to war. Wars are expensive, and so being able to have the taxpayer subsidize that cost really gives one reason to believe that competing police forces really would have a much greater incentive to not use violence than the state does.
When we look at private security, one example I've thrown out there in the past is Disneyland, which on any given day represents sort of a private city of sorts, maybe 25 or 30,000 people. And of course, their private security there is very unobtrusive, and their incentives are very different from police. In other words, they want to avoid escalation, they want to avoid legal liability for harming someone, and they want to avoid bad press or any damage to the reputation of Disneyland. So it seems like in a place like Disneyland where you have true private security, the incentives are wholly different than the incentives for your local police officer.
Oh yeah, this is true in any situation. So a private policing service that I've looked at quite a bit myself is an organization called Threat Management Center in Detroit. And what's interesting looking at them is just how much more accountable as a private police force they are than the public police are. In pretty much every way, they have a greater accountability. They have greater financial accountability, that if people are unsatisfied with their service, they can let them go. Whereas, you get in a lot of trouble if you try not paying the public police. As you mentioned with Disney security, they want to avoid civil lawsuits, whereas public police are often protected by qualified immunity laws, where if they make mistakes in the course of their duties, they can't be held civilly liable. And even if, someone who was beaten up by the police successfully sues a police department, it's not coming out of any cop's pockets. It's the damages are paid by the taxpayer, essentially. I think another important part of that is contractual accountability, that the Supreme Court has decided on multiple occasions that police don't have, or public police don't have this duty to protect you, that even under the most negligent circumstances, if they fail to protect you, they can't be held liable. So essentially, they don't have to uphold their end of the social contract. Whereas with private police, you have an actual contract that if they fail to protect you, then they can be liable for a breach of contract. So I think the fact that private police as an institution are just so much more accountable really determines the incentive structure that they have to be more beholden to the clients they're supposed to serve rather than to the political classes.
Well, you mentioned Detroit. Tell us a little bit more about what you found out studying Detroit. Was this private defense agency of sorts that you mentioned, were they operating in the high criminal areas of Detroit, in rough areas?
So they operate in a variety of areas. They have about 1,000 households that they serve and 500 businesses, and their paying clients are typically more upper scale communities that they provide these kind of Lamborghini style services, as they call it, to protect them around the clock. But they also serve a lot of lower income people that, due to these profits that they make from serving more wealthy people, they'll provide free services to domestic violence victims who are actually referred from the prosecutor's office to Threat Management Center, this business. They will transport them to and from court, take their kids to school, or even guard them around the clock. In more extreme circumstances, they will provide free self-defense training to families with children. They will also, perhaps most interestingly, is provide free training to sworn law enforcement personnel one night a week in tactics to de-escalate situations, and also training them in a martial art that's designed to not cause permanent injury so that there's fewer lawsuits. That's what I found kind of ironic, is that despite this service that Threat Management Center provides, the Detroit police see them as a threat, as competition. They closely monitor them. They are pretty eager to catch them doing something wrong, but in their 20 years of existence, they haven't yet had any court dates for civil or criminal matters.
Well, and as we've seen in recent months here in the U.S., in a lot of impoverished areas, the police are seen as the greatest threat of all. In other words, some of those communities might actually prefer no police, no government police, to the police that they're getting because of the police violence we've seen. And it seems to be unaccountable.
Right, absolutely. Like mentioned earlier, that like these police, they don't have any accountability in terms of damages they may cause, and they aren't really trained in a way to be service providers. The way they're trained is mostly to regard officer safety as the number one thing. And so in these high crime areas, it shouldn't be a surprise that you have to depend on the goodness of their hearts rather than any other incentives that they may have.
Right, rather than any market incentive. Both Rothbard and Hoppe talk about an insurance model when they talk about private police. And the insurance model posits that, while both an insurance company and an insurance premium payer, the insured, have an incentive to prevent crime before it happens, whereas state police have a tendency to respond to crime. And when crime goes up, they don't get fired, but in fact, they clamor for a greater budget. So it seems that state police have a growth model. They almost benefit when crime increases, whereas a private model that's more dependent on insurance has a financial and a direct incentive to prevent crime and to keep crime low.
When you look at some public policing agencies, like the way they're evaluated really provides them with these perverse incentives. So, for example, some police unions, when they're negotiating their budgets, they will use these measures of performance and need. Performance is measured in terms of arrests, and need will be measured, as you mentioned, in terms of crime rates. Higher crime rates mean they need more, but from the perspective of what clients want, they would much rather have crimes prevented than ever having them happen in the first place. And yet, to engage in kind of a proactive, preventative approach negatively impacts both these measures, that there's fewer arrests and a lower crime rate. And so looking at the incentives facing an insurance model, it's much more costly to recover stolen property than it is to prevent it from being stolen in the first place. So I think with the insurance model, you see the incentives of both the service provider and the customer are aligned much better than you do with a monopoly police force that's paid through taxes.
What do you think arrest and incarceration would look like in a private system? Clearly, the agency has an incentive in not warehousing criminals at a great expense for long periods.
In the past, when there was less of a role for the state in the provision of adjudication and dispute resolution, most, there wasn't even a criminal law. Most cases were treated as torts. And so most of the punishments, as we'd call them, were in the form of restitution. I think that a private society would rely much more on restitution, even for possibly violent crimes. I'm also not sure whether a private society would totally rule out the possibility of execution. As far as prisons, I know I'm sure you're familiar with Robert Murphy's model of private prisons, essentially taking prisoners, maybe training them, and kind of collecting a debt that they might be owed from. But I don't know what incarceration might look like.
What's so interesting about the restitution concept as opposed to the imprisonment concept is that it would presumably reduce or do away with a vast variety of victimless crimes, right? The restitution model relies on actual restitution for an actual victim as opposed to just taxing us as taxpayers to provide expensive incarceration for all of these crimes that didn't touch or affect us.
I think that's why you have some legal scholars like John Hasness or others in a more free market tradition just recommending getting rid of the criminal law. Just have a civil law so that anything that would be considered a crime there has to be a victim. There has to be some party who's injured and will argue in court about how they've been injured. Yeah, I think without a criminal law, you wouldn't have these problems of victimless crimes, that there'd have to be some identifiable victim to collect this restitution.
As the situation across the United States begins to look more and more like the situation in Greece or the situation in Detroit, I think we should all be thinking of how effective policing and how effective crime prevention might begin to unroll. Tate Fegley, thanks so much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend.
Mises Media on YouTube. Check them out. Subscribe. Mises Media from Mises Institute. It's something we talked about before, but it really comes down to no incentive to do what's right for the community, what the community needs. And things that in a private security would be kind of something that would hurt business becomes the incentive of the monopolize, where taxation, which is theft of your money, pays for them, and they have no incentive and immunity when they do wrong. So they have no incentive to do right. But occasionally, and it's one of those things like I've said before, your sheriff tends to be one of the better picks. And I have one here. I posted on Anti-Tyranny News's Facebook page / Anti-Tyranny News. And it's been a while since we had one of those, finally there's a cop that's standing up And I'm trying to get this short clip here before the end here. I want to kind of end it on the good note here. If I can find it here. Here we go. And it's posted at Counter Current News, and I think a few other ones I got from punkrocklibertarians.com. But it's a sheriff standing up for the citizens and letting, it's either city cops or deputy sheriffs know what's up.
Bad rap, but he lives here. 2000-4444. All right? He's watching fireworks.
The 4th of July.
Independence Day, right? There's a constitution that I swear an oath to, so don't freaking mess with it with these citizens. You understand me? I know you're not subjected to the Constitution when it comes to your job, but don't mess with it. They have a right to the property. They have a right not to be searched by anybody. You understand that? They have a right not to be accosted. He lives here. I swear an oath to the Constitution. Don't mess with it. You understand me?
And in that, he sounds pretty aggravated that they're doing it. It seems like this is a sheriff that is saying, you know what, you're going to just not do this. That's point blank period. I'm not going to allow you to accost anybody. This is their property. They do whatever the hell they want. You just stop. And we need more people like that. You think about it, if we had more people like that, we wouldn't have so many cops running around acting like they're some badass. I'll quote what it said here again, and Free Thought Project has this article here. There is a constitution that I swear oath to, so don't freaking mess with it. With these citizens, do you understand me? I know you aren't subjected to the Constitution when it comes to your job, but don't mess with it, says the cop shockingly. They have a right to their property. They have a right not to be searched by anybody. They have a right not to be accosted, he goes on. I swore an oath to the Constitution. Don't mess with it, says the cop as he walks away. The video then ends. Witnessing the police officer vehemently assert his rights of citizens is quite heartening. It also appears that the officer did so without knowing he was on camera, which means this was probably not a publicity stunt. We've been scoring the sources on the video for 24 hours. If you have any help to find the original post, or basically the people that were there. So, Free Thought Project. But, you know, it seems that most of the time when you see an officer standing up, tend to be a sheriff. And they have the most luck standing up against tyranny for the citizenry. And so if you're going to vote for anyone, think if we filled every county or the majority of counties in the United States with constitutional and strong sheriffs, men or women, any race. We had the African American black sheriff that warned the citizens that they should arm themselves and learn how to use a gun because they can't be everywhere at once, and you are ultimately responsible for your safety. Therefore, you have the right to protect yourself. It doesn't matter what race. It matters people that understand freedom and understand that government is not the answer, and a lot of times they become the problem. because in the broad scheme of things, they are a monopoly on force. And because the way they get paid is through stealing from you and then subjecting you to rules that if you don't obey, then also you become basically their slave. Victimless crime, something where you're not hurting anyone, a lot of times not even hurting yourself, doing absolutely nothing to anyone, including yourself. And you can become a slave to the government. So we have to address a lot of this in a different mentality. Before we come to the end of the broadcast, I want to tell everybody about the UCY store. UCY is partnered with Amazon, and they've created their own store. It's through Amazon, but they've put a collection of prepping and camping and radiation preparation gear together that's one of the best I've ever seen. And you're getting the same great deals that you normally get through Amazon, you know, the same shipping type deals and rates. At the same time, though, when you buy through that link, UCY gets a kickback that helps, you know, bring you these broadcasts that you hear on UCY.tv, including this one. Gives us a platform to really spread the truth, give you the facts, and give you our opinion, too. And gives you a platform also to express your voice. Some of these shows do call in interviews. So it's a great platform. It's independent. You know, as a host, I'll tell you, I'm not, you know, scripted or anything. They don't tell me what I can or can't say, who, you know, I can or can't play. It's one of those things. I have a free outlet, and UCY's provided me with that, and I'm grateful for that. So go check them out, the UCY store. Go to UCY.tv, click the UCY store tab, and you help this network and this platform that gives us hosts a great place to give you the truth. And when it comes to prepping, I'm one of those people. Yes, I do the gold and silver, which many of you know, but I think seeds are also something that's important. If it becomes a situation where you have to uproot, you don't know where you're going, and you want to settle down eventually, non-GMO seeds are probably what you're going to want to have. My Patriot Supply. I don't just use them for prepping. I use them for a source of non-GMO seeds. And whether I'm getting something for my prepping bag or I'm buying something for that year, I choose My Patriot Supply because they give me the information I need to know that my seeds are some of the best quality non-GMO seeds I can get. And I partnered with them. So if you go to antityrannynews.com/mypatriot, you can check out all the great non-GMO seeds and seed vaults. They have your herb, your regular 1 acre crisis garden. They also have municipal herbs that you can buy. And